Thank you very much for joining me today on the podcast, Dirk. I'm excited to have a conversation with you. So, we're going to go through your off season today and lead up into your next prep in 2026. So, the last time you competed was 2024, correct?
Yes, exactly. Yes.
So,
2024.
so with that, yeah. So with that, I guess like coming off a high in 2023 when you won the world title, and 2024 you just lost out to I think it was a guy from Taiwan, right?
I think Chinese. Yeah, but he's living in the US.
Chinese.
Yeah, Seben is
Yeah,
his
yeah,
name.
yeah. Okay. So between that like loss to now, what's changed for you? Because like obviously coming from the top spot, you really want to try to claw that world title back. What has been the big focus across like these last 2 years?
Like the biggest learnings, you would say, or like
The biggest focus from like a training perspective.
the biggest focus. Yeah, like what I would say is I took like a longer off season this time around because I was competing back to back, like 23 and then 24 again. And yeah, one of the big things was like, okay, I will take a whole year off now because hey, I need to get much better. And the next time I get up there, the goal is like winning the world title again, which is this year. And yeah, and just spending more time gaining. I think the like the biggest thing of like, hey, like when you want to get better, just spend more time gaining. I did something quite different this gaining season of like a kind of gain-taining approach, which means I mostly maintained my body weight the whole year and just focus on gym performance and progress. And I didn't had a single like period of any sort of mini cut, pre-prep cut. And this means it will be 1.5 years gaining progressive training. And I think that is the key thing of like, if you want to get better, spend time like, yeah, making gains, like progressive training, staying away from a deficit for as long as possible. And yeah, and growing mostly everything. I focused a lot on my quads to bring the quads up quite a bit. Also my back, my arms. But honestly, I always want to grow everything. But I think those muscle groups made like the biggest improvements so far. Yeah.
So with the nutrition, then of course, like the whole gain-taining thing is like quite popular at the moment, and I think it's very important for people like you in your position, right? Like you're already quite close to like your ceiling in regards to like muscle mass potential. I think like a lot of people who are maybe early on, they're probably over focusing on thinking they can like add 20 pounds of muscle in like a year while essentially on like maintenance calories, which is just not the case. So I think for yourself, the question I have is like throughout the last 1.5 years, then have you still been like rigidly tracking, or like what is the type of way that you go about trying to ensure that you're still giving yourself sufficient amount of food to progress, but also not going to the point where you're overeating and putting on too much excess body fat?
Yeah, how I did that was at the beginning I was still like tracking my food in a sense. And now the last few months I started just eating intuitively since my set point is also quite low where I feel my best with like lower body fat. And I figured out if I gain, why should I track calories? If I eat intuitive, I just eat at maintenance intuitively. Where that is an approach I wouldn't recommend for most people because most people, if they eat intuitively, they just get fat. And this way, yeah, this way I ensured like staying more or less at the same body weight, like for the whole year, like listening to my body. I still have I have experience with like how much roughly I'm eating a day, wise, how my meals should look like. I make sure every meal has protein and so on. And yeah, and therefore I ensured sticking in between like 71, 72 kilos for like the whole year. And yeah, and honestly just focus on like, yeah, being full every day, not going to sleep hungry. And yeah, and recovering, like having good gym performance, which I think is like a better thing to get feedback from than just the scale. Because the scale can move up, but if your gym performance sucks, doesn't mean anything, but I think if the gym performance is good, then you know you're eating enough, I would say, in a sense. Yeah. If you see you making progress across session to session. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense because like training is ultimately like the stimulus, and like that's the thing that's like giving us the largest return on investment. So,
Yeah.
like as somebody who is more advanced now, obviously the scales, as I said, they're not really like the best metric for you to be looking at because you're not really looking to see any kind of major changes there, right? You're not looking to put on an extra 10 kilos of extra fluff that you're going to have to take off and make your prep harder. Within the gym, of course, training progressions do at some point start to slow down. When it does come to that side of things, like what are your expectations coming into a session? How often are you thinking about like progressing, a set or increasing load? How's your mindset changed on that now relative to maybe where it was like, a couple of years back?
Yeah, like I would say I still make quite good progress, honestly, like performance wise, where I would say like on many movements, session to session, I still manage to get like more repetitions in, or what I focus on as well is like also cleaner repetitions. This means like sometimes I might hit the same repetitions, but just with like it just feels easier, it just feels more controlled, which is also like a form of progress. But I still like get like more repetitions in like session to session, even if it's like one repetition in one set. That also means, hey, there's like some adaptations happening, but it's obviously like much slower compared to 5 to 10 years ago, where it was like this curve. Now it's like it's not here. It's just like a little bit slower now, I would say. But yeah, I not chase the progressions at this point. I let it come to me, and if it happens, I know everything is right on track, the stimulus, the recovery, and so on. And it is also depending on the movement, on the muscle group I focus on. Sometimes I even reduce load to get like better stimulus in on some movements. If I realize, oh, the execution got quite sloppy, and I make it like very intuitive from movement to movement, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, like I think that's one thing that nobody can deny. If they look at your training, it looks very like there's a lot of precision. Like it's like a machine moving, where you have a lot of control. I guess like how important do you think that is for people who are maybe kind of starting off on their journey relative to people where you are right now? Because I think I think it can, from my perspective anyway, it can be easy for the newer athletes to look at what the pro athletes are doing. I definitely think there's like plenty of good things we can take from people who are training at high level, but at the same time, can it also take away from some other variables that might be a little bit more important, right? Because like obviously at your level, right, you're able to do those reps with a high level of intensity and a high level of accuracy, whereas for other lifters, it might just cause them to be lifting way too light relative to what they can actually do.
100%. Like what I would say is the case. What I often see when beginners like try to copy that style of training, they didn't learn yet to train hard. And I think learning to train hard, it has to look a little sloppy, like at the beginning times. And I think it evolves. Like there will be like your training style, for instance, it will usually never look the same. Like the first year, it looks like a little bit like that. And over the years, I would say people should develop their own style of training where they feel I think the main priority is like staying healthy, like getting not injured, but also having fun with it, making gains. And that is what we see all the pro athletes doing. They're having a lot of fun during training, staying injury free, making good, having good results with that. And I think that all looks a little bit different from person to person. So I think for beginners, it's good of like testing out like a lot of things. But I think the main thing is like learning to train hard. Because if someone can't like, it's a skill, right? It's like a kind of getting yourself into that discomfort. And once that is there, hey, then you can try to clean things even more up. But at the beginning, it can be sometimes that over focus on like execution, like having 10 cues in your head and so on, where there's not really a stimulus for hypertrophy coming in. Because what I'm doing, I still don't think. It looks very controlled, but I just like don't think during the movement a lot. And that is the skill which should come over time to make it like make it work, I would say, where you still don't have to think, but also training very, very intense. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I think as well, like once you start to get older, like that level of control, precision, it just makes more sense, even from an orthopedic standpoint. You know, like the last few weeks, I was doing leg extensions and like I was doing it really heavy, but my knees were in bits. You know, they were like just sore from the very first rep, and that goes into my leg press then, right? And you know, I reduced load by about 20 kilos, and I don't feel as if I've gotten any less stimulation from my quads, but my knees hurt a lot less now. And now I'm able to go into leg press. I'm able to move better, like better weight, better control. And obviously, I do think once you start to pick up those like little niggles, there are definitely things to keep in the back of your mind of like, okay, there's probably some aspect of like my load that I'm getting carried away with here because those issues only really come up when we are starting to maybe eat a little bit more than we should from a training perspective.
Yes.
So have you ever had any of those kind of like type of injuries to do it, and like what way have you worked around them? Because you did mention that obviously longevity is a really important part of like getting to a high level. So have you had any kind of injuries across like the last off season, or how have you managed them?
Yeah, luckily, like nothing happened injury wise. I had a lot of injuries within the first 4 years of training, I would say, where I trained like more reckless, where I was really focused on maximizing the load and all of that.
Hmm.
And I got everything like elbow, shoulder, my knee, my lower back. And this kind of made me develop that like training more accurate, more precise, not over focusing on the load too much. That is how it came. But now since a long, long time, I didn't had any like serious injury, like time to time, like little shoulder pains or it happens as an athlete. I think like little niggles happen, but nothing like very like serious. And yeah, and I think a big part is of that like training very like accurate and controlled and so on. And having just experience of like knowing like yeah what I can get away with, what my body can't handle. I think that's also different from person to person a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's probably just one of those things where as you progress in your training journey, you are going to get that little bit more savvy with how to adjust the likes of your training intensity, your technique, all the while to just continue having you progress. Because I think it is one of the biggest reasons why so many people stop lifting is they don't learn that there is another way to still train and still get a stimulus without wrecking your body. Because look, it is very easy to get stuck in your ways, especially with exercise selection, right? Because exercise selection is one of the key variables that we have as bodybuilders to be able to like rotate through. If like something's giving you pain, but something still trains the muscle group but doesn't give you pain, it's a good option to swap over for, right? And I think like that's obviously with the gyms that you train in, you have like such like good equipment availability, which is obviously makes it very, 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 very worthwhile to be able to do. So I guess like coming back to the kind of areas that you're looking to mainly improve for this off season, right? So you mentioned like quads, you mentioned arms. With those particular body parts, like is there anything that you have done differently this off season relative to previous ones, like in regards to like split design, exercise selection, exercise order, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I would say the main variable is obviously like the volume in the sense of like putting more volume there, like a little bit less on the muscle groups I focus not primarily on. So this alone is like one of it sounds so simple, but it is often like the main thing just to like more quality volume on those muscle groups. And with the setup, what I did as well is like starting my week with a leg day or like biceps and quad focus day. So I focus more on the biceps and the quads. So the first day of my week coming off 2 rest days where I'm like the most recovered, the most fresh. I'm doing like biceps and quads primarily. So I'm able to get the best like performance stimulus in on this day. And yeah, and then I have like a usual upper body session, another lower session, and another upper session with like 4 total training days a week. And Yeah, and when it comes to exercise selection, I would say like yeah, like anything that feels like good for me, where I feel like, hey, like I stay healthy with that, and I'm able to also progress on it and have fun with it. It's feeling good, and also like working with like somewhat different resistance profiles, right? Like some more shortened bias, like 20-30% of my volume, and then like more lengthened bias, which is like the little bigger chunk of it. And yeah, and that is how I do it right now with all of that. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, as you said there at the start, like an obvious one is increasing the volume, and I think this is obviously an important point for a lot of people to understand. Is like when you are increasing volume, it shouldn't be at the expense of that work quality, because it's very common for people to push up load or push up volume, push up the amount of sets they're doing a particular body part, so that will grow, and all of a sudden now they're training a lot further from failure, or they're pacing themselves, right? They're like, I have 3 or 4 sets to do now for this particular body part. Well, I better save myself for the later ones. I guess like with that, when you're, say for example, how many sets would you do on the biceps within that like biceps and quad session?
For the biceps, it is around like 12 sets for biceps and quads. Like also up to 10 sets, I think, which is definitely like on the higher side for me on volume, because like all those sets are also very close to failure or beyond on some. So in a total, I think it's roughly around 20 sets quads and 24 sets biceps a week right now, which is definitely on the higher end. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And there's people
Yeah.
out there saying that natural lifters shouldn't do any more than 10 sets per week. You know? Um, Yeah. What is your opinion on that? Like whole kind of dogma that is around these days in regards to volume for lifters. There you have a lot of like the camp who are saying like any more than 10 sets or any more than like even like 2 sets for a body part is just like not worth doing, causes edema, all this kind of crap. I'm sure you see all that type of rhetoric. What do you kind of think of all of that, like non-science based information that seems to be coming out?
That is the age of social media. I think there will always be trends, and I think what I suggest for like a lot of listeners as well is like be very careful what content you're consuming, and pick like a few people you really trust and they have like a good reputation and so on. Listening to them instead of like any sort of like TikTok influencers and so on. I think that is like one of the key things, because yeah, like especially within social media, a lot of those trends, they want to like sell like fear and so on, and want to sell you that magic recipe and I have the answer. But at the end of the day, it's truly so simple, and the basics, foundations, they never really change. That is why 30 years ago there've been a lot of crazy big people out there, and so like bodybuilders, and nowadays there's like trying to find that magic recipe a lot. And I think yeah, like that man, like those foundations will apply forever of like like training principles basically, and learning those principles and then testing them out on yourself, seeing how that goes, and then within all those years adjusting that a little bit. I think that is like the main thing, and not being too like attached to extremes, I would say, of like super low volume crew or going super crazy high volume, like starting in the middle. And that is usually with many things in life, the sweet spot is like that middle path, and like nothing like too extreme, and just being consistent with that middle path, having fun and making progress. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of times like shiny object syndrome, isn't it? It's like people see an infographic coming out from an influencer, or like even like just like a short reel, like a 10-second reel, and all of a sudden people are thinking about overhauling their training program. And like, you've been training for well over a decade at this point, haven't you?
Yes, it's now this year it's 14 years.
Yeah. So I'm sure in that 14 years, there's like more so been like gradual shifts in approach versus, you read an article and you're like, I need to stop doing this and start doing this.
Yeah. It was like the first 2 years of training for me there. When I started out, there was a big trend of like that power building thing where you have to
Oh yeah,
combine powerlifting with bodybuilding.
I did
I
that.
tried that out. I got a bunch of injuries, and those trends are always shifting. There was like that power building trend, and now it's like with the volume kind of thing, like super low volumes, where there was also a period where it was like super high volume was so preached, and it's always shifting, and at the end of the day it all comes down to that middle, I would say. Yeah.
Mm, yeah, it always comes back to like what works for you because like
What
I
works
think
for you? Yeah,
yeah, if
100%.
you look at like any if you look at like 10 of you guys up on stage, right, at like WNBF World or something, if you ask every single one of you, how do you train, what way do you set up your diet, how many times do you eat per day, all these different things, there's gonna be like 10 different answers that come out, and it's like these things like are so like the principles, as you said, is what it's all laid upon, and it's like whatever you gravitate towards yourself, like even from a psychology point of view, like I personally could not just come into the gym and just do one set for an exercise. And I couldn't do just single arm work for the entire single arm or single leg work for the entire session either. I'd fucking go crazy. It wouldn't be enjoyable. And if that was in theory optimal, I'd prefer to pick something that's a little bit more suboptimal. That's gonna lead
Yeah,
to
and
enjoyment.
it comes down to the fun part, right? Like the fun part is such a big one, and people often forget that, like having fun while training. And yeah, and then still being focused, obviously, like having fun and being focused, and then yeah, and then making the progress. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, yeah. It all comes back to that. Like, and I had Eric Helms on the podcast last week, and he mentioned the exact same thing when it does come to a lot of the natural bodybuilders he would know who are in their like 40s and 50s. Like they've always found a way to continue having like the passion for training and continue having like that fun element baked into it. And I think that's, again, even listening to that coming from you, something that a lot of listeners kind of like take away from, like the more people I have like yourself on who like kind of relay these principles, it just continues to confirm my bias and be able to shift people in the right direction.
Yeah, and it looks different
Yeah,
for
yeah,
everyone. I got
absolutely.
comments before. If I would train like you, I would be bored to hell. But for me, it's fun, like
Yeah,
training how
exactly.
I do. For others, it might not be fun. It's like there's so many things in life, right? Like some people enjoy like playing music. For me, it would be boring, or right? Like everything is like everyone is a little different. So yeah, I think that's such an important part, which is often overlooked in a sense.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's no way that you're going to be able to train consistently for 10 plus years without actually enjoying the
enjoy
actual
it.
process.
Yes,
Um,
100%.
so I want to shift towards, oh, sorry, like actually, we don't really shift towards prep just yet, but guess I want to ask you, relative to stage weight, like how far above stage weight are you right now?
Right now, I'm about like 7 to 8 kg above stage weight. Like the stage weight I had in 2024, which was 64 to 65 kilos. Now I'm at around 72 kilos. And yeah, and I hope I added some stage weight this time around. I'm actually quite positive that I might be a kilo heavier than last time, which would be insane at that level, like 1 kg of actual muscle mass is it's a bunch, yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
I
That
really
that
hope
look,
so.
yeah, it would look pretty gnarly spread across your physique because you're already fairly packed out from
And
muscle
I'm
mass
shorter
perspective.
as well, so that's also one thing. Like when you're shorter, you 1 kg is like doesn't have as much space, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. It could be like I think you're 5'6", 5'5",
uh, 5'5".
5'5". Yeah, like so I'm like 5 inches taller, and it'd probably be like an extra 2 kilos on me, in regards to like actual space, you know. Um, so I guess like with that, like naturally enough, like climbing up in body weight can have challenges, and I know you did mention like this off season has been relatively handy because like you've been more so eating intuitively and you've just been focusing on you know, like, ensuring you're full after each meal, like, not going to bed hungry, ensure, like, looking at your training progressions. In previous push-up phases, I think I remember talking to you at like the 2023 Worlds and mentioned that you had been struggling at that point with like managing your appetite and like getting in enough calories. So as somebody who probably doesn't have, like, I can eat for the world. I've got a massive appetite, so I can't resonate with that at all. But for the people out
Yeah.
there who maybe struggle with eating up, what would be some good tips for them if they are kind of struggling in the game phase when it does come to getting their calories in?
I would say like the main things. Like one is very obvious. It's like more liquid calories. Like I got myself like a blender this off season, which came really handy. Of like also getting my food, my micros in like early during the day. Like a blender is so good. Like you can put food in, even some vegetables, whey, oats, milk, everything. Can create like 1,000 calorie healthy shake. Like that really helps, like those liquid calories. And the second thing I would say is like, yeah, like getting those like a big chunk of your calories in early, so don't fast. Like I don't know, like sometimes I see people they don't eat anything for the first 6 hours or very little food the first six, seven
Mm.
hours throughout the day. So yeah, like try to get your body used to have like I like to have like a big smoothie like 1 or 2 hours after waking up. And then I already have like 1,000 calories in. And then I know, okay, like the rest of the day is like somewhat more chill because if you don't eat a lot throughout the day, you get very anxious and stressed. Like, oh, damn, it's already 8 p.m. I have 2,000 calories left to eat. How I'm doing that. And even if you do it, it impacts also the sleep quality a little bit. Yeah, like I would say having a good structure with it. Obviously, you don't want to have all your calories at the for breakfast, but like yeah, I would say like 70% of your calories the first half of your day, and then the next 30% maybe like at the evening. That can really help, I think, with it. Yeah. And yeah, just by being
Yeah,
used to like being like a little full. Like I don't think as well it's super hell like really like stuffing yourself so much where you feel super uncomfortable. But I would say that's like yeah, just getting used to like being full all the time. Like yeah.
yeah, I would 100% agree in the structure side of things. Like, even when I'm eating a lot of food, like it can be nice in dieting phase, right? Like when you maybe miss a meal and you get to combine meals and you have a bigger meal, that can be nice if you can overcome the intense hunger that sometimes comes with that. But when it does come
Yes.
to eating more calories and being in the game phase, and if you have to combine meals, sometimes it can be like a fucking death sentence. Like, especially like I'd only eat 4 times a day, and I'd be eating maybe like 4,200, 4,500. If I was to combine two of those 1,000 calorie meals together, like I'm done. Like, that sleep that night is gonna be terrible.
Yes. Like it can really impact the sleep, right? With like that big meals right before bedtime.
When it does come to, then, I guess, how to say, the management of the surplus, like how stringent are you with like ensuring that you're in like the same calorie threshold per day, or would you have some days where your appetite's a little bit lower and you pay more attention to that, and then days where your appetite's a little bit higher and then you kind of eat up around that? So like this could be around particularly hard training days like legs, or for example.
Mm, Slight bit. I would say on my rest days I eat sometimes a slight bit less compared to like days where I'm just more active. So I listen a little to that hunger cues, but it's not any extreme. Like I still have sure that I have like I don't eat on a meal plan, but it's quite similar. Like every day I have like this amount of meals, and each meal contains roughly this amount of calories and protein. So it's a lot by like by intuition and just like habits at this point, I would say. And
Mm.
if there's days where I just feel more hungry than usual, I just make use of it and have those extra calories. Like there's some days where I feel, oh, I'm still a little hungry in the evening, and I have an extra snack, for instance, which I usually don't have. So that is how I'm doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's the whole point of the intuitive eating side of things, isn't it? It's like paying attention to what you feel your body needs. So like paying attention to those days where you feel like that higher demand for energy intake, but also one thing that is going to help you, and you alluded to it earlier when you talk about the diet more, where a lot of people who go with intuitive eating, they think they're doing intuitive eating, but it's just like they don't have any structure. They're just eating what they want. Whereas like years of tracking, years of being fairly disciplined with like a structure and like finding the meal types and food sources that work for you allows you to pay more accurately to the signals your body is giving you. Because if you're just eating like a lot of sugar, a lot of really hyperpalatable foods, your hunger cues and satiety signals are going to be off the wall. Whereas if you're eating the good quality diet, they're a lot more, better finely tuned.
100%. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask one thing before we get into the prep. Okay, so
Yes.
how much pressure do you feel like before you start prep, right? Because obviously, you're one of the top guys in your category right now, one of the top guys in the world. How much pressure do you feel like in regards to like social media expectations that would be placed on you before you enter a prep?
I would say like it's positive pressure what I have. It's like it's a kind of pressure I enjoy where I know like oh I have like a standard and a lot of people expect me to live up to that standard. And I see it almost like as a privilege, which is quite cool. But it's not that it's stressing me out, honestly. Like it's still in my mind. I think, okay, I have to deliver. I can't like slack it off, but it comes very natural to me. It's like I just enjoy like being in that athlete role and ticking all my boxes. It just comes natural to me, and I think I think it's a good thing for like having a lot of people. They like expect a lot, they look up, and I'm happy to inspire at the same time with it. So yeah, it's like a positive pressure, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, you soak it up versus try to shy away from it. Because look, I think anybody who gets to the top of sport, like they're ultimately they're a person of influence, right? So people look up towards you for inspiration as well. So if you're able to show that like you actually enjoy being in that position, like it's only going to reflect positively on everybody downstream. Because you know from looking at your social media, you don't come across as somebody who's like I'm gonna show up there and I'm gonna beat all these guys, or you don't talk shit. Whereas like obviously that also kind of shines a positive light in regards to your own approach, your own process of just being able to focus on you being the athlete and making the most of the process that you're on, the journey you're on.
Yes, yes. I think that's the main thing. If you enjoy the process, like you truly love what you're doing, there won't be any pressure because I would do it anyway, even if I like my first prep where not a lot of people knew about me. I still had the same mindset. Like I just enjoyed the whole thing. And I think pressure comes if you not genuinely enjoy what you're doing because like, oh, I actually don't like it so much, but people expect so much from me. But if you truly enjoy what you're doing, like the pressure doesn't really matter because you just do it anyway. Like, yeah,
Mm.
I would say.
Yeah, exactly. It's like if the world like if social media didn't exist, would it be still something that you would do? And if like that is like the answer is yes, you're very much on the right path, and like the extras are just they're niceties, right? But they're not the thing that's fueling you at the end of the day.
Yes, yes, 100%. Yes, I agree.
So prep is going to be starting in probably about 10 weeks time, 12 weeks time.
12 weeks, like early May. That's crazy, man. 3 months already. Yeah,
Okay.
it's
Yeah,
soon,
yeah,
very
that's
soon.
going to sneak up.
Yeah.
So tell me, what shows have you got planned to do?
So far, I'm still not 100% sure. Like the show I will do 100% is always WNBF Worlds. It will be in Canada this year. I gotta buy me some winter clothes. I gotta buy me some winter clothes here in Thailand. I have none. That will be a big shock for the system, I guess. And yeah, most likely I want to do WNBF UAE in Dubai again, WNBF Taiwan, and I'm still thinking of potentially doing shows in Europe. But then again, the thing is, I also don't want to do too many shows in a season again. It's always like little hard to pick. So in Europe, there's the MBW show, which would be super cool because I'm also like an athlete with them, which would be very cool. There's like the Evo Classic in Germany, the WNBF Germany. There's a lot of options, so I still have to decide with that, but for sure WNBF was. And yeah, most likely WNBF Taiwan, since it's just next to Thailand and it was such a good, crazy good show production. And yeah, and Dubai is also 5 hour flight from Thailand, so 5, 6 hours. So that is also like quite a good one. And yeah, and then I will think like Europe if I want to do it or not. Like I have to see like 3 shows is usually like a sweet spot for me. And yeah, so gotta see.
Yeah, pe- peaking for that many shows, especially when you have to travel so far, is tough. You know, like especially like traveling from Taiwan, you're traveling across all these different time zones. You're gonna get a shock to the system, man, when you go over to Canada. Especially, I think it's in Calgary, right? Calgary in November. So
Calgary,
like,
yes, yes.
yeah, you're looking at what 40-degree heat over there in Thailand, and they'll be getting -30, -30 degrees in
Exactly.
Calgary.
And I ever do like one like trip like that from Thailand all the way there. And if I go to Europe, I have to do a long jet lag in Europe, another jet lag there. Yeah, that's something to think about. So I'm still not
So
100.
when setting up for prep, is there anything that you will start to do slightly differently in the approach in regards to nutrition? Is there a little bit more rigidity around like step targets, or how do you kind of how do you get yourself into prep mode?
I would say like this go around with prep, I plan to lose body weight even slower than ever before, especially once I get towards those final 2 kgs. That will be one plan of like going like really, really, really conservative there. Because I always feel like those final 2 kgs, that was always the point where I lost a little bit of muscle mass. So I wanna be extra slow this time around. And yeah, and like when it comes to step targets, I will most likely like track calories again during prep. This will be one thing. And yeah, like with the step targets, no crazy high targets. Honestly, my steps stay at around 6 to 8K throughout the prep, and this honestly helps me as well of like keeping all my physical output, the majority just for training. So if I don't have to do cardio, like I never did cardio in any contest preparation, and I mean like if you have to do it, it's you have to do it, but if you don't have to, it's smart to like put your expenditure, let's say, like on the lower end. So that helps, I think, with recovery for like keeping muscle mass, like gym performance. So yeah, like this will be the plan. Yeah, like a very, very slow one. And then that's the thing when you have a good starting position, you can go slow. You don't need those like 20,000 steps a day and so on, which I think is one of the main keys. Having a good starting position, like a good timeline of like I still plan to like May, it's still like 20 weeks for the shows. And yeah, and if people look at my condition now, they may assume, oh, you could be in shape in 8 weeks, but getting into true contest shape, it takes so much time. And yeah, I think that good starting position helps a lot with like you don't have to, you can really chill. And I think for natural lifters especially, it's one of the keys to keep the muscle mass and also like just enjoying the prep as well, in a sense.
Yeah, I'm sure like even like internally, there's probably benefits to going that little bit slower. You know, because I think it's when people are having to like I had for my first prep where I was like dieting for like 35 weeks, but I was coming into it not having any experience with like how lean I should be. I had somewhat visible abs even though I was like high in body fat. I probably won't be too far away from stage condition. And then you know nearly 20 kilos later you're like, okay, I can see why
Yeah, yeah.
people start this process a lot later these days. um but yeah, like even internally from a hormonal perspective, energy, like fatigue wise, it probably just makes so much sense to like keep yourself in a better composition when you're before you start prep.
I would definitely say so. Like this way, you I also enjoy it much more, I would say. as you say, like losing 20 kilos, it's quite tough on the system as well. And you need quite a long break, a long recovery period afterwards, and so on. So
Mm,
definitely not easy. Yeah. Like there's
yeah.
a lot to lose.
So when you're looking at weight loss targets now, like what would you
Yes.
be estimating, like week to week wise, like from a, let's say, like percentage point of view, like how much would you be anticipating to lose?
Like I never have like a like since body weight loss is really like an up and down, it's not really predictable so much. It's more so
Yeah,
like I have a timeline of like how I want to look like my body fat, like this amount of weeks out. I know how I should look like at 8 weeks out. I should know how I should look at 4 weeks out, and having those like timestamps in a sense. And even within body weight, I know like what roughly 69, 68 kg looks like. And I have more so like weight goals or also like how I look like goals, kind of like, okay, at around 12 weeks out, I should be at around this body weight and should look right around there. And I also like how I feel. Okay, like if I feel like shit too early, that's a sign of like, okay, stepping a little bit back and knowing like when that period comes in where I feel like those intense symptoms of contest prep and having like that feeling with it, I would say. So like body weight wise, yeah, the beginning is usually a slight bit faster, but yeah, anywhere of like 300 grams a week, maybe 400, like truly quite conservative throughout. Yeah.
okay, yeah. I guess like that's, as you said, like it's the look you're going for, right? And you have all the historical data of the last time you were at X body weight and X weeks out. That's like giving you feedback of whether you're on track. And I think like obviously for like people experience, that's obviously something worthwhile to use. But I know you also have some coaching athletes who do bodybuilding too. When you have somebody who's coming into you with no experience, right? They haven't been on stage before. How are you helping to assess like what that rate of loss should be?
It's highly depending on like how much body fat is to lose. So if someone is not in the best position, I obviously plan a somewhat longer contest prep with them, and a slight bit more like assertive like weight of loss at the beginning. But I would rarely exceed like 1.5% of body weight per week because it might work at the beginning, but it's easy to burn out with like going way too fast, especially within a contest prep because it's not a mini cut which you exit very soon. It's like quite a long thing. So I would say 1 to 1.5% of body weight per week for like people who have more to lose, and anywhere else like 0.5 to 1% a week, and starting prep off like slightly more towards 1%. And the deeper you get into prep, 0.5 or even less, because once getting very, very lean, the scale matters like also even less. So that's how I would go about it with someone. Yeah.
At what like point do you stop looking at the scales as such? Because obviously you're coached by Birdo, and you talk all the time about how the scales in those final few weeks doesn't matter. So like, at what point are you just like kind of detaching yourself from that and maybe just kind of paying attention to visuals?
Mm. I would honestly say towards like those final 2 or 3 kgs of body weight to lose, which I assume like that is like what this person has to lose. At this point, I think like looking much more towards the visual changes, like week by week, is a much better data than the scale, because the scale at this point can, yeah, like jump a lot, or as well like 100 grams of body fat that is gone can be very visually like obvious on the physique, but sometimes the scale doesn't show you that because 100 grams is like such a small thing, and you might had like a slightly different like meal timing, sodium intake, and so on, and the scale doesn't fully show that. So I would say at the like at the end totally, but even at the beginning of prep, even if the scale is not going down a lot, but I see the visual changes change a lot, I always put the visual changes first, obviously, because that is the main goal at the end. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think like when looking at the scales too much, especially at that end of prep, if
Yes.
you're coming if you're coming in with expectations as to fat loss continuing at the same level as it did at the start of the prep, Like he
Hmm.
can very much lead you in just like losing some of that like tissue that you may have built in the off season because can you as you said, it's meant to get slow at that point because like every 100 grams, 200 grams that drops now, that's going to have like such a striking difference, but it's not going to be picked up on by the scales. Whereas if you got 100 grams or 200 grams of fat loss at the start of prep, you'd be very disappointed.
Yeah.
But now it's just like it's the expectation, and
Yes.
if you try to force more, that could just like end up making you look worse. And I think like an important point is like it's not necessarily about being like your lowest body weight on stage. It's about being like your leanest. So like so much of that is going to be just done by ensuring that like towards those final few stages you're not like freaking out. And obviously having a coach to guide you in that process makes a
Exactly.
big deal.
Such
I
a
guess
big one.
like you've been working with Berto for like I know a number of years now.
It's now 10 years. Yeah.
Okay, wow, 10 years. So
Yeah.
how much has his like I think of him like as like a bodybuilding Yoda. Um, how much of his approach has like really kind of changed like your mindset around dieting, your approach around training?
Honestly, the on man, one of the main things was like he made me more chill with everything, like more relaxed in with so many things. Then it's like as bodybuilders, we are often so like obsessed with those little details, trying to maximize every little thing and being very like neurotic, like very anxious about all those things, right? And I think with Alberto, one of the main, he really teached me of like yeah, like knowing what matters, like which are the big stones, what are like the things that actually lead to like the results. And yeah, and he made me very, very relaxed with a lot of things. I think that was like one of the main changes. And yeah, and really just trusting like the process of like doing those big, like important things for a long period of time, being consistent with it, and then the progress is just coming. So he teach me quite a lot of like yeah, like simplicity and enjoying those simple things and not being too worried and stressed out about those all those little details in a sense. Yeah, I think that was like a big part.
Yeah, I think kind of similar to when we were talking about training and like the enjoyment of training being something that's going to keep you in the game for a lot longer. I
Yes.
think what you mentioned there in regards to like keeping calm, keeping stress, like not majoring in the minors too much, not like being overly neurotic about like small details, is also like, another big factor in like keeping in the sport long term because I think it's a I think it's an error of people new to the sport, right? They think they need to be quote unquote optimal, like their macros hit to the exact gram. Every day needs to look the same. They cannot miss kind of mentality. And like, there's only so long that you can really do that before it starts to impact other things, right? Like, fair enough, right? If you're in a prep, okay, if you're in a prep, I can definitely see where that mentality really stands to you. But when you consider like an off season being 2 years, right? And like you're
Yes.
deciding that you can't go to your best friend's birthday, or you can't go to a wedding without like bringing a Tupperware container. Like that shit is like overkill. And I do think it makes people look forward to the end of bodybuilding versus seeing it as like something I could do for the rest of my life. And I think that's very much like that's definitely something I've picked up from like following like 3D MJ's content across like the last 10 years too. And
That
obviously
is perfect.
you being a 3D MJ athlete working with Berto, who is one of the founders of them, is obviously going to bleed over to your approach, and it's definitely part of why you're so successful as well.
Yeah, like that gives you that longevity in a sense, I would say, of like, yeah, not seeing it as like a job you hate. Like some people treat bodybuilding as a job they hate, and I don't get it. Like you choose to do it, why you make your life harder by not fully enjoying that whole thing. But I think as well, it's still important to like learn, be open-minded, and especially at the beginning, obviously you need to learn a lot of things. But then once you learned that, like learning to also be a little bit relaxed with it. I think that is like a big thing. And even within contest prep, I think the more experience you get, I think the first half of prep, it's quite smart to be extra chill because then I can have so much fuel once I need that because the first half of prep is usually easy. So not be that over focused at the first half. I think that is also a key thing, even in prep, where if you directly in that tunnel focus from day one, you will be burned out, like in the middle of it. And keeping that tunnel focus fuel in until when it's getting truly hard. And that's also obviously comes with experience a lot as well. And that is also this part what I want to do a little different is like being even more chill, like the first half of it. Like really just treating it as a mini cut. And then once I know it's getting more serious, I turn it a little bit more on, like my like focus in a sense. Yeah. Of like everything.
Yeah, yeah, 100% agree. It's only sustainable to have that level of like focus for short periods of time if you really want to make the most of it. Because I think when you have it for too long, it makes you too reactive to like small stressors that maybe don't matter all that much. And can easily ruin your day and get in your head, and you know how bad stress can be for like being able to lose body fat efficiently, hunger levels, your ability to like keep focus within the gym. So I think coming in with that more level-headed approach, I think is something that a lot of people can definitely learn. Um, one thing that is going to also be quite important for the contest prep journey, and I'm curious to hear how you go with this. But like, obviously, managing fatigue in the form of giving back to your body from with refeeds or deloads, like they're obviously things that like might be needed throughout the contest prep just to keep the body taking over. From like a refeed perspective, like or diet breaks, would you implement them much during the likes of the contest prep, or when would you start to add them in?
I would do them from the get-go, honestly, like refeed days, like diet breaks. I think if you put refeeds in from the beginning, you don't even need a diet break. It is, I like to see refeed days as rest days, right? Like with training, we know we benefit from having rest days, and I think with dieting, like the main thing what refeed's doing is it's like on the like the mental side of things of like knowing, okay, 2 days a week, I not like let totally loose, but we have like quote unquote rest days of dieting. And I think that helps a lot of like, once you get very, very lean to keep that fuel in. The same thing with that tunnel focus. I think if you have low days from day one, it's a little bit similar of like you might burn out like, oh damn, I didn't have like one non-dieting day for so long. And by Wi-Fi days, I don't even need diet breaks whatsoever. And I think that helps with like, like surviving like 20, 30 weeks of prep. And and managing like also like good performance because I think it does also help a little bit with the recovery for sure, especially when you get very lean.
Yeah, I definitely like found when I did my season 2022, like I had refeeds planned in every week, and I think at the start I probably was a bit more like, oh, there's an opportunity here to maybe eat a little bit more foods that maybe shouldn't
Yeah.
have. But I think like the closer you get towards like being in condition, like you actually start to realize, okay, like this is a really just good opportunity here to fuel well, fuel correctly, and just like ensure that like I'm not spiking my hunger too much coming into like the following week, because I definitely think like some of the food choices you can make around refeeds can definitely make that like following stint of fat loss that little bit harder. Do you do you also use the refeeds as like some type of like some data to help with the peaking process
With which process?
with, with the peaking for competition?
How is the picking process? I would say so because you can take notes of how you look after refeeds. I think it's very good data of taking like physique updates like a day after. Like I like to do refeeds also consecutively, so 2 days in a row, so you can really see of like how your body responds, and then seeing how the physique looks like. So I think it can definitely help with like peaking as well. So you can see how much carbs you had those two refeeds, and if you're still a little flat, oh, you need more. If you quite spilled already, okay, that's like at the upper end. So it can definitely give good data also as well for like peaking, I would say. Definitely. Yeah.
Mm, yeah, like the last few competitions you did, like what way did you kind of tailor the peaking process during those? Like, would you be somebody who would be kind of gradually loading your carbohydrates through the week, or would it be like a backload where you have carbohydrates higher like the 2 days out, or would it be like more front loaded?
It's more of like a gradual process of like at the beginning of the week, like having somewhat more carbs, then again in the middle, somewhat more, and then like 2, 3 days out, again more, and like one day out, like seeing, oh, am I a little spilled or not? And then we take it by the physique of like, okay, we might have a little less carbs this day, or even a little bit more. So it's like a gradual process, which I think is the safest route, like the safest approach of like, yeah, like managing to not be flat or not be spilled. Because the thing with those aggressive back like loads especially can be, yeah, it's easy to spill over and it's you can't really correct it. That's like the danger, right? Like you can't really like fix it, but with like that slower approach, you can still fix things a day out. If you sense, oh, I'm a little bit spilled, you can still fix it in a way. So that's how I did it like usually every show I did. Yeah. It's very simple. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I guess keeping it simple is obviously the main goal, because if you are able to if you're not like hoping for a certain effect, right? I think that's something a lot of people get when they're coming into competition and peaking. Like they think that the magic is going to take place there and they're going to look completely different, and that could just be a case that they just haven't lost enough body fat to really actually going to make a difference. Whereas like being ready early, you're typically ready like early, so you have like the opportunity there to like eat up into the actual show versus you know essentially you know hoping for the best during that week, whereas you're kind of hoping that all the work is done there. And yeah, as you said, you're going to get a lot of data from the likes of your refeeds too to see what is sufficient amount of carbs that's like make my physique look the best, so I can essentially just walk on stage. Because yeah, like bodybuilding, it should be a relatively straightforward and simple process, but I think it's us who like to make it complicated, people who like to make it complicated.
Yeah. So especially peak weeks, there's like all sorts of like that magic week which changes everything, but in the best case scenario, it just changes like a little bit usually when it comes to the whole physique, you know.
Mm.
Or if done
What do you
wrong,
think
it
are
can
some of
destroy
the
a lot.
what are some of the have you ever witnessed any kind of crazy things backstage at like WNBF Worlds, or any of the events you've done in regards to people with their peaking processes?
I think so. I think the craziest thing I witness is like some people they don't drink anything the day of the show, like nothing, like no hydration whatsoever. I think that was the only thing, but besides that, like nothing crazy, I think. So I think it's good. Like nowadays, there's more
Yeah.
education with that of like not doing any sort of dangerous peaking methods in a sense. Yeah. But I think, yeah, like the non-shrinking can definitely be dangerous if yeah, someone is doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. When I competed as well, like I remember talking to some guys backstage and they said they hadn't drank water in like a day. I was like, that is absolute insanity. And there's me
Yes,
with
yes.
like
And they think
a
you get
liter
more
bottle.
dry, but you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you don't get
Because
more
look,
dry. You might even get plain water. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, for sure. How the body's trying to regulate water balance. Like once it starts to notice you're dehydrated, like any water you pull in, it's going to cause that like film
It's
over the
stored.
skin and yeah, make you look
Yes,
soft and
yes.
stuff. Um,
100%.
so I guess like obviously in the lead up to the competition, the diet's not the only part. So you're gonna have the likes of your posing, right? And posing is something that I like to ask a lot of pros about as well. How do you start implementing rounds into your days to get ahead on the competition?
I usually like I like to start from the get-go with like some posing cardio in the morning where I just hold the symmetry poses for like 10 minutes. And the closer I get towards the show, I slowly increase it up to 15 minutes. And it sounds easy, but it's so hard of like holding the front relaxed for like 5 minutes straight and keeping everything tight. So I start that quite early to build up that endurance. And after each training session, I do like 2 or 3 rounds of muscularity poses. So I like to do it just from the get-go. So it's also a slight form of cardio. And I just get into the habit. So that's usually how I do it. And yeah, and at the beginning, like maybe again like 5 to 10 minutes of holding the poses. And the deeper I get into prep, I increase that a slight bit, like the closer I get towards the shows. Yeah.
What do you think? Like, what do you think is probably a big mistake that people make when it does come to like getting into their posing practice during the contest prep?
I think a big one is like they don't train their endurance. Like they might be good at like hitting the poses, but they're not good at holding them. Especially at WNBF, where it's well known for keeping you up there for quite long. I think like yeah, like just your stamina. I think that is a big one. Like it is so freaking boring, but it makes a difference of like holding that front relaxed like 5 6 days a week for 5 minutes each morning. It's so boring, but it makes a difference on stage. I think that is like one mistake, and yeah, and maybe not starting the posing training early enough. Like some people, hey, oh, 2 weeks out, oh, now I start with posing. But you should start it 3 4 months out. It's getting already into it because it's, yeah, especially at the beginning, it's harder than you might think. Yeah.
I think what one good thing as well about like learning how to pose is like I think your training improves because you're able to learn how to contract your muscles better, like being able to
Especially
create
your
like that
back.
mind
Yeah.
muscle connection. Yeah, yeah. From the start of an
Yes.
exercise, just becomes so much better. I can't even imagine how sore you were after that. You were on stage for like 45 minutes at WNBF Worlds in 2023, the year that you won the world title. How
It
broken was your
was
body after that?
insane. It was quite broken, man. And they let like the symmetry poses, like they let it hold us for 20 minutes, I think, or 25 without a break. So that was like this year, like it was like for me, oh damn, I need to work on my stamina even more next prep. So
Yeah,
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 it's
man. You
like
need you need
yeah,
almost like a pre-workout meal
crazy.
before you do that.
Yeah, like last year I had like a Monster Energy before I stepped on stage. Some caffeine as well, like yeah.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So I guess to round off the episode here, what what's the most memorable moment you've had since you've started bodybuilding?
Most memorable moment. Ooh. I think like winning my pro card and the overall at WNBF Worlds in 2021. That was probably like my biggest moment so far. I think where I was like, wow, that was insane. Yeah, I think that was like such a big moment in 2021. Like the pro card win, the overall at Worlds. I think that was like a huge moment. And then as well, like meeting my coach, like Alberto Nunez, the first time ever in person, like the whole community in person, since as depending where you live, but you might be like that only weird guy who's a natural bodybuilder at your gym, right? And going, that's what I love about WNBF Worlds or natural shows. It's like, hey, oh, that's actually a big community like coming together. And yeah, and sometimes at times you might feel a little lonely throughout the journey if you're like the only guy in your gym who's doing that. So I think that's also like an always nice like to connect with those people like across the world at those events, what I really enjoy. Yeah,
Yeah, like we are
that
we
is so
are a small community within another small community. Like natural bodybuilding within bodybuilding is already like it's a very small niche. So it is good that we all are able to like connect with one another across the world and stuff like that. It's a nice little part of the sport. If you, like I always liken it to the fact that like if you play football, right? You play soccer for your local team. You're never going to be able to speak to Messi. you know, you'll never speak to Messi. But
yeah.
within natural bodybuilding, like an amateur could again, like I'm an amateur. Have you in the podcast now? Had Eric Helms on the podcast there? Obviously chat to AJ because he's my coach and stuff like that. So it's nice to be able to connect with people at different stages because you learn from them. And like that's one reason I have you here is because I want to learn from you, to hopefully get to where you are someday. Okay. Final question I have right before we wrap up is
Yeah.
what would be some words of advice you could give to new to the amateurs who are on their kind of journey right now, and they may be kind of looking towards sticking in this for the rest of time.
Yeah, I would say especially what we talked earlier about is like avoiding a little bit all those noises with like especially short-term social media content, and hey, maybe hiring a good coach and like learning to really trust the process and sticking to like one approach, trusting that whole thing, having a lot of fun while doing it, and yeah, not overthinking like every little detail too much. I think that is one of the biggest advices I would give him, especially nowadays where I think we are at an age, especially within bodybuilding, where like everything is so overthinking, a lot of overthinking. And yeah, and I think that's like one of the biggest advice I can give of like, yeah, learning to enjoy it, trust it, be consistent, not focus on all those little like contents and so on. I think that's like a big one. Yeah, I would say.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your time, man. Where can people
Yeah.
find out more about you and your journey?
I'm mostly active on Instagram, like Dirk Emmerich. You can find me on Instagram. And yeah, I might put like some YouTube vlogs again up in during prep, but Instagram is usually like the main thing where I'm active on. So there you can connect with me and so on. So yeah, man, thanks for having me. So
I will leave all of Dirk's links down in the description if you want to follow along his journey this year, which I definitely recommend you do. Because yeah, I follow along his last year, a few preps, and they're very, very impressive and inspiring. So yeah, that's pretty much that for this episode. If you did enjoy it, make sure to leave a rating and review on the podcast platform that you're listening on, and we will catch you in the next one.